Of the Exeter Heritage Commission, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order 12, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. On November 13, 2020, public notice of this meeting was posted on the town website and on a bulletin board on the town offices at 10 Front Street. As provided in that public notice, the public may access this meeting online and via telephone. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start this meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting and who that person might be. This is required under the right to know law. I am John Merkel, Chair. There's no one else in the room with me. Bill?
I'm Bill Campbell, member, and there's no one in the room.
Julie?
Julie Gilman, the Select Board Representative, and there's no one else in the room.
Jay?
Jay Myers, Vice Chair, and I am alone. No one in the room.
Maura?
Maura Fay, Treasurer, and no one else in the room with me.
John?
John Gruder, Planning Board Rep. No one else in the room with me.
Pam?
Pam Chatham. No one in the room with me.
Reporting Secretary is Liz Herrick. Liz? You're muted.
She doesn't have to speak. She's a non-voting member.
Okay. All right, let's get started. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of October 20th? That was our last regularly scheduled meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any comments?
I have one. It's on the first page, and it's the last line of the first page. Terms of other projects like the former, it says dance site.
Yes.
This was what I was saying. It should be the dam site, former dam site. That's all I have.
Any other comments? If not, I'll take a...
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the October 17th meeting minutes of the Heritage Commission.
Second.
October 20th, I'm sorry.
Yes. No, any more discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait a minute.
Roll call, John?
Yeah, we have to do this by roll call. Bill?
Yeah.
Julie?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
Maura?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
Okay. Meetings of October 20th have passed, are accepted as amended. The next item is part of the item is the discussion of the October 28th meeting. I imagine that we should talk about that meeting first, and then we can decide on approval of the minutes. Anybody would like to start?
Well, I'm pleased that so many people came. I really was worried that we would just be talking to each other.
I think we got some really good questions to set us up for a meeting with the planning board. I don't know, John, what did you think our chances are?
Which John?
Gruder.
Okay. I tell you, I thought, and I apologize, but I thought this was more of a grassroots thing. I thought maybe the neighborhood would have more. They had a lot of input, but it wasn't until the last couple of comments that it was something that was could be deemed positive. Seemed the others are all a little bit afraid of what we were trying to do.
Yeah, I got that impression too. And I thought maybe the next step would be for us to come up with some of what we're really thinking of as rules. Or, I mean, I know it's there should be a committee of citizens that get together and do that. But there were so many questions, not so many, but there were several questions about, well, how are you going to do that? Are you going to, and they confuse it with the HDC. So I wondered, I don't know how many of the people spoke up, but the ones that did are people I know and who have, who are, I guess, influential in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I was thinking that it would probably be helpful if we could put together like an FAQ document and circulate that, because I think a lot of the resistance that I could hear sounded like people assumed this was basically like a historic district, and were very concerned that it not be that. And I guess to me that sounded like the overarching concern. So if we could put together, maybe a one-pager that could answer a few of those questions, maybe that would help allay some concerns and, pull together some more support. Because I do, from the people that I've talked to about the project, I don't get the sense that anybody's radically against it. And it just felt like a lot of the concerns were coming out of a misperception of what we were trying to do.
I think I had a similar feeling. I actually think that a couple of the ones on Cass Street, particularly, were kind of like misinformed.
Yeah, that's what I felt like too. But I think we were kind of vague in what this was going to give the neighborhood. Because that's where I found most of the comments were going, is that there's interest in some kind of protection, but they didn't see it in our message, or if they read the handbook, they didn't feel like that message was what was coming across. Mm-hmm. So I think that part of what I think before we go to the planning board, we might want to have another neighborhood meeting. Mm. That's one recommendation, I guess.
Well, before we have another neighborhood meeting, we have to get some of these things cleared up, because otherwise people are confused and it's a confusing subject. So, but, well.
I think Mara's idea was a good one. If we just could sort of put out a one-pager with some of the things answers to some of the questions that came up, might be good.
Yeah, and I think since it was recorded, right? So I feel like we could go back and review the questions and kind of see, maybe it felt to me like there were, 2 or 3 kind of general themes that questions seemed to fall under. So we could kind of target the FAQ that way.
Yeah, I like that idea. I was going to add that we could describe it as sort of a learning process amongst ourselves. I mean, this is what we learned from that meeting. We were informed by the public, and we tried to answer as many questions as we could, but this FAQ sheet is sort of an aggregate summary of some of that. Mm-hmm. The one thing too, I mean, there's certainly the confusion about historic district versus heritage district. And I thought towards the end that they were able to see a little bit more of the forest through the trees, but it was just the details that they were concerned about, or at least the comments were focused on, was not not the mission of the heritage district. It was more for conservation and preservation rather than some of the other details that were coming up.
Yeah.
So that's how people answer. They look, what is this going to mean for my house? Does this mean that I can't paint my front door? Does this mean I can't fix my shutters? And that's what we have to make very clear up front.
Yeah, I think so, because looking at the handbook, you can get very restrictive. And I was surprised when I first read it that there were things like, outlying clotheslines and flagpoles and, ancillary things that are not of historical value, I guess, to me anyway, like a clothesline. I think if we want to promote sustainability, I wouldn't want to prohibit clotheslines.
They're not too popular right now. Must have been from a previous era, Julie.
I know. They're coming back. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Where did this originate? The idea of creating this district?
It came from this committee. We had heard about it. There's some interest with it's part of the state preservation plan.
It didn't originate in the neighborhood.
Well, I'm from the neighborhood, so yes.
Well, okay.
So is John.
Yeah, I know John is, but I didn't know whether did it have any, the Rose Farm issue that we struggled with for 2 years on the planning board is. I didn't know whether any of this was a result of that, since that neighborhood's directly in front of it and very much affected.
Well, I saw it as, and I'm not going to speak for Maura or John or Jay. I saw it as an example of an opportunity for it to be an example, not to, because the case was in court for so long that whatever we do here, I don't think will affect the court case, because this is an action we're taking after the decision.
John, I might be a little bit guilty of this because when we did a site walk with the people from the Division of Historical Resources, they were very excited about the prospects of surveying this part of town, and they were very I can say cooperative in and when Lynn Monroe and her group got here, they were equally as surprised.
Yeah. And they went and they also recommended enlarging it, which was crazy. Crazy as far as the amount of work they had to do.
So I wouldn't say the Rose Farm was part of the initiative for this. I think if anything, it gave us that live in the neighborhood a better understanding and appreciation for the whole neighborhood. And
I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I think if we had buy-in from, maybe we need to work with some of the residents that might be in favor and educate them and let them help us spread the word.
Well, and for me too, John Gruder, it was an example, a tool to use for the planning board, because the planning board has some authority through the site design guidelines, I believe, to look at the architectural styles of what's being proposed for a development like that, or any development. And I personally have not that be seen. And it's been a struggle for me. That was part of the why I wanted to change the site design guidelines, and what prompted me to move up the master plan is because I felt like that was not a consideration of the planning board. And I know you often see just site plans, but you can request whatever.
We clearly don't have enough say on architecture. Really don't.
But you can.
I think when it comes to, where did this come from? Certainly having lived in the neighborhood most of my life, it wasn't until I was on this commission that I sort of recognized how underappreciated it is and what kind of resources the neighborhood really has. And after a few demolition reviews, especially where, you know, we were being asked to review structures that were really unfortunate to lose, but having no say to be able to deny a request, you know, it really made me feel like, looking around the neighborhood, especially around the Park Street Common area, like, you know, wouldn't it be awful if, you know, the Leahys sell their house and somebody says, oh, this, you know, 1720 house is too much upkeep. I'd like to tear it down and just rebuild a modern colonial. I mean,
it would be awful.
Yeah, that would be awful, right? So I think for me, that was the impetus, was recognizing that we literally don't have a way to prevent that from happening at this point, and that it would be a huge loss to the town.
Yeah, I think that was a point that was made at the very end, that someone could come in and build a, you know, cinder block building and you have no say.
Yeah, there were a few positive comments towards the end of the meeting that we maybe can build on.
Yeah.
There was one woman at, I forget what street, and she was saying that the people went by her house and kept asking her to sell. I don't remember who she was, but she sounded like someone we need.
Yeah.
Well, there is another neighborhood that I know that has occurred, where they knew there was going to be a lot of neighborhood backflash or, you know, dissatisfaction, and the developer bought up the properties, the abutting properties. So that does occur.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the unanswered questions for me that came from a person was whether non-contributing homes would be subject to whatever regulations come up, you know, that the community board comes up with. That's probably something that the community board would get to decide, but do we have a feeling one way or another on that?
Well, everybody's contributing. Even if you don't have a 1720 house, there are things that you definitely don't want built there. You'd have to say that much more tactfully.
Yeah, I think the contributing part of it is, in a way, a part of the form itself, because the form itself is actually used to determine whether the area is eligible to be an historic district. It doesn't separate it as a heritage district. It uses the same form that you would use to evaluate it for an historic district. And that's why they're been contributing buildings and non-contributing. But I think you would have to apply the same rules to the non-contributing ones as you do to the contributing ones, because they are part of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thought. I just kind of was curious how everybody else felt.
Yeah, I think that's another area that's confused with the HDC, and that the HDC has a defined area of authority, whether or not your building was built last year or 200 years ago. So that question needs to be answered softly, that yes, you're contributing, you know, the map has outlined which buildings are non-contributing, but if we define a neighborhood, then everything in it would be the same application would apply.
And a person that owns a house in there opt out, especially if their house was sort of on the edge? And can somebody opt in? I mean, I'm more concerned about the second, really. There's a couple of houses when I was looking at the area. There are a couple of old houses that are right on the edge, but they're not included. Particularly the one on the corner of Green Street and Water Street down there. I believe that's a very old house.
The big yellow one on the hill?
No, the down by the water. It's if you go down Green Street, it's on your left when you hit Water Street.
Yes, I know the one you mean. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's one. There are a couple others, but can we redraw the lines at all, or?
Yeah, there's nothing saying we can't, but I don't, if we want to add to it, we need to get, I think we need to add to the survey also, which is a money concern.
Uh-huh.
I have a question, and it was something that I'm looking at my notes. One of the people that were part of the forum asked about, a tax advantage for those to participate, and it makes me think about, how do we, or what's available to us to kind of sweeten the deal for them to participate, and here's sort of the basis of that too. I'm kind of equating this to a natural conservation district or a natural conservation area, and a property owner or a farm, owns a large farm, and they turn their land over to the Conservation Commission so that it doesn't get developed any further than that. But I think they receive some sort of incentive, aside from being an altruistic incentive, but some sort of incentive for them to do that. I don't know if it's tax-based or what, but like we're talking about this, it seems like we're talking about the same thing, but we're asking 130 different homeowners to not only be, to think this way, to be altruistic about creating a legacy in their town, but we're asking them to do it for no incentive other than just the good of their, the good of their heart. And I don't know if there's something we can do to incentivize participation.
Well, I could answer a little bit. If a person can first of all sell their land to the Conservation Commission, or just if the commission had money to buy it, we had a $3 million bond a while ago, and we bought several properties. But we also put easements on people's property where they own it, but they do just what you said. They want to ensure that it's not developed. But they get compensation for that from the bond or from a organization such as the Southeast Land Trust or something, and they get compensated that way, unless they want to donate. Some people do. So I don't know what kind of a incentive, especially for a district like this, when you've got three historic districts also that would say, well, wait a minute, if you're going to incentivize this district, what about mine? I live in one, Julie lives in one. We'd like a little incentive too.
Well, there is an incentive, don't you? There's I believe there's still this is really just an aside, but for the example, there's a tax implication to being in a historic district, which is that it tends to be flat because the sales are relatively accurate compared to the other houses on the street. So when the valuation occurs, the valuation of the property occurs from the assessing office. If you're in a historic district, it tends to stay the same, so that whether or not the tax rate goes up, your rate doesn't go, wicked high compared to other people whose houses in another neighborhood might jump. So there's that, and then there's just the plain out, preservation.
I don't understand that, because my assessment has gone up several times since the district, or at least twice.
Mine stayed the same. It really depends on the comparables.
Yeah, but I don't think it's because I'm in the district. That's all. I just assume it went up because land values have gone up across this town, and we get reassessed and it goes up.
Well,
there are a couple of things on the Division of Historical Resources that are about funding through various programs, and not necessarily through the state, but there's Preserve America and the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, which is a nonprofit group, offers small grants for preservation of something that we've now identified as a contributing resource. So that's a good action.
I can imagine when you're living in an area that someone else wants to make, or maybe you want to make a heritage district, you have concern because maybe this may restrict my ability to sell my unit to my home to someone who might want to do something different. Whereas if I bought into an existing historic district, I kind of know what the rules are. I know what I'm getting into. With this, someone who's not, we're going to take someone who's lived in this street for 40 years, and now we're going to change the ground rules. Mm-hmm. So it might take a 2-page FAQ to get to all those answers. Because I think that I would be concerned. How is this going to affect my ability to resell this thing if I choose to move?
Yeah.
So.
I'm going to throw out an idea that maybe we don't vote on these minutes at this meeting, that we go back and maybe take a look at the saved meeting and analyze these in a lot more detail and generate some questions or some talking points that we can put together something.
Sure.
But the minutes are supposed to be a recording of what happened, and that we wouldn't be changing the minutes. We'd be just getting ideas from the minutes. And it would seem to me, unless people have, I have a couple of corrections to the minutes, but it's not going to be earth-shaking. But I think that it's supposed to be a recording of what you did, what we said and what we did, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree with you, Bill, on that. I was more concerned with getting names right and.
Well, yeah, that's a couple of corrections I have for the minutes, but that won't change the ideas.
Right.
But I'm thinking that I would like to, if we vote on these today, we can vote on them if you all feel you want to do that. But I feel I need to look at that meeting again.
Definitely. There's a lot of stuff in there. There were 7 pages or 8 pages or something. Liz did a terrific job of getting all this stuff down.
But I'm trying to develop a next step, and I like the idea of putting together kind of like a summary of maybe questions and trying to address some of the concerns that were expressed at the meeting and some clarifications. Mm-hmm. And if we have to have another public meeting, I'd be all in favor of that again, if we could get people to stay motivated.
Yeah, I think it might help to kind of move the conversation along if we can have some ready answers to some of those kind of, more general questions that a lot of people had, and then be able to move to specifics or, talk about whether there is interest in participating in the advisory board and, developing the guidelines.
Would it make sense to do that and follow Maura's idea with, and Jay's too, for that matter, or John, I forget who said it also, but maybe it should be 2 pages. I think that was John. But developing those things, and then maybe even then asking at the second meeting, would there be a group that would be interested in helping to form some ideas before we go to the planning boards? I don't see a big rush to get this out of the way before Christmas or anything. So I wonder, and maybe Maura, if you wanted to take the lead on that. I'm still a little new to this thing. I haven't read everything all the way through in that survey that was done, but.
Yeah, I think, what my thought is that I could just put together a shared document, and I could start, and everybody could at their leisure, but I could start, pulling in a couple of the questions from the community meeting, and we could, put together an answer and try to make that document as clear as possible. And I like that idea of having another meeting and asking for, whether there are folks who would be interested in moving it forward or not.
Jay, I have a question for you on the logistics of doing that. Do you know how, so we still have the database of the people that we sent this out to somewhere, like Barbara would have it perhaps?
I assume so.
I have it. And she would have it, yes.
So my question is, billing wise, I think this would be coming out of for this year anyway, coming out of, or the rest of this year, out of the Heritage Fund as opposed to our budget. That's just an aside. So I just want to make the logistics of the whole thing easier than, starting from scratch.
Am I hearing you say sending out another mailer? Like this would be a FAQ sheet mailed out to?
I don't know. I'm asking you folks how we'd reach out to the people who were at that meeting or their neighbors.
I think that's probably the safest way to make sure we're getting to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Maybe we could take the people that participated that we have documented here and just engage them to kind of like spread the word.
Well, that is how it's supposed to work, to have a neighborhood group, not an official one that's agreed, appointed by what's in the RSA or the handbook. This really is a grassroots movement. So that could be the start of people who are both for and against it. So everybody that came as a participant, because we know how to reach them. So that's a pretty good idea.
So Maura, are you going to take?
I will start the document. I will share the link with everybody, so anybody who would like can contribute. I think we can use the minutes and the recording of the meeting to guide, which questions we think would make the most sense to include.
That's good.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With that, then, do we want to? Does anyone want to comment on the minutes, or have Phil? You said you had some name.
Yeah, on page 4, Liz, the name of Doug and Eileen, it's Flockhart.
Yes.
You probably have that too, John. Yeah.
Yep.
And,
Probably did too.
Probably. And on page 5, it's Susan Scannell, I believe, not Scowl. I think it was.
Yes, Scannell.
Okay. It is Scannell, but I forget what was there. So those were 2 names I picked up. But
I believe my name is misspelled someplace. I don't have the minutes with me, but.
And I think I see on page 5, it says Joel Shander, SH. I think it's SCH, I want to say, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I think Joel isn't it. Yeah, it's SCH.
Page 5. Is it 5? about a third of the way down, when a survey is done, there is a form that follows the National Register of Historic. It says preservation. It should be historic places, I believe. I kind of made comments on the minutes as I was going when we got to the people that were actually participating in the conversation. I felt that there were more positives than negatives through this, especially if you take out the misunderstanding between a historic district and a heritage district.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Are there any other comments on the minutes?
I'll make a motion they be accepted as revised.
I'll second.
Desiree. Yeah.
Okay. Bill, do you want to vote first?
Aye. Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Jay?
I
Maura?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Pam? You're muted, Pam. Oh, all right, Pam is not there.
Emma abstains.
So the minutes are accepted.
Good.
Anything on the Black Heritage Pocket Park?
No updates there. We are currently in the process of scheduling a new meeting time. We're looking at the week of November 30th. So hopefully by our next meeting, I'll have something to report.
Okay. And I had a request from, what is it, Sally Ward, Bill?
Yeah. Sally Ward.
Yeah, from the Conservation Commission. They have a subcommittee for Rains Barn, and she asked me if the Heritage Commission would be receptive to putting a member on that committee. And it's something that wouldn't happen right away. I think they would have to change their bylaws.
Yes, I would.
I'm on that committee already.
You're on that committee?
Yeah. I'm on the stewardship committee of Rains Farm, yeah. So you've got
That's an easy
there.
solution.
But however, if somebody would like to run against me and be elected to it, I would not fight that.
I'm on there too as a liaison, so
That's right.
I don't vote, but I get to hear what everyone says and have input.
No.
I think it's not only the bylaws that would have to change. We really have to take a look at the RSA, because the Conservation Commission is a very different body from the other land use boards, because they advise and have regulatory powers.
Well, yeah, the stewardship committee has people who are not right now are just citizens on the committee. They're not part of the Conservation Commission. So
Yeah, that's allowed by any commission. So
I would think they would allow somebody from, a Heritage Commission, if they, if I wasn't around, to just be there.
this is just for the Rains Barn Preservation Subcommittee.
Yeah, the Stewardship Committee it's called.
Yeah.
Rains Farm Stewardship Committee.
Yeah, so we could formalize it if you'd like. Right now you have two people crossing over. I won't always be on the commission. Bill will be until.
No, I may not be always either.
But it probably is something that could just be formalized in their bylaws.
I can get there with my walker. I'm all right.
There's no need to do anything at this point then.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I might report to the group. I don't know if you've heard or not, but you remember the house at 110 High Street that you said could not be demolished. Well, it went on the market and it's under agreement
Oh,
right
great.
now. So there's a young, everybody's young to me, fellow who has put his, has it. I think he's got to go to the HDC, and that's probably why it's not formalized yet. But he's willing to go. He's got some great ideas, and
Well, that's a nice outcome.
I think so.
John, would you call that a success finally?
If it goes through, and I give credit to the hospital for listening and saying, well, once they got sort of turned down by the Heritage Demolition Committee, not being stubborn as, well, maybe I shouldn't say, but as some people in this world are, but they finally came around and said, okay, we see it, we see the neighborhoods would like it, and we'll put it on the market. And there was quite a bit of interest, seeing houses over there, cars over there. So we'll see how this works out.
Yeah, there are a few firms in New Hampshire, probably in other states, that deal with the preservation of old houses. It's what they do for a living. And
he's got somebody like that working with him. I forget what the group was, but
yeah, I sent a couple of names to the hospital in case they wanted to really keep it and do anything with it. But
well, anyway, that's good.
Congratulations! Yay!
Is there any other business?
Yes, I always forget to ask you to put this on the agenda at this time of year. There's the budget time. It has been proposed to just keep our budget the same. That's what we're doing everywhere, every department. We're freezing hiring. We're not making any big suggestions. I believe this year would actually be an HDC. We trade off years, or have kind of informally traded off who gets the CLG application time and grant time. And the letter of intent, I thought, was due the 20th. And but when I looked at the next message, it's November 20th of 2021. So we have plenty of time to decide. And we had talked a little bit about this before, is doing a survey. A survey is totally funded by the CLG grant funds from the state or Secretary of Interior. And that's part of our mission anyway, and what the state's looking at. So we had talked about doing a survey in the, what's the word I want? JD Hill area, because that shows a very different aspect of how an area of town gets developed. But then I went back and looked at the map presentation, and really it's the Front Street area, Court Street and Elliott Street, that is the next developed area. So my question is, do we want to go for a survey, and if that is an area that we should prioritize? And it's already a historic district for the most part, but not the side streets.
I think it makes sense to move towards that area then. I mean, if that's sort of the logical progression, let's do it.
Yeah, see if we can get another sidewalk off, if they're receptive to it, if we can get another sidewalk off in the springtime.
I think it's a pretty good area because half the work's already done.
Yeah.
So then I don't mind making it a larger area going out to Pine Street and back to Court Street.
Yeah.
So I can put a letter of intent for that in if that's what the commission would like to try. And if you want to have time to think about it, apparently we have a year.
Well, do a letter of intent, and we
can always negotiate. If we change our mind, there's plenty of time to, if we just do a letter of intent for continued survey in the growth pattern of Exeter, then we have plenty of space in town to work with. The concern came up because the HDC wanted to do a wood window workshop, old house window workshop, which the Conservation Commission had done a couple of years ago. But what I had been talking to with the HDC was that it be a little more extensive and be like an all-day shift kind of thing where you'd have 4 people at a time or more over 3 periods, 3 classes. Because they can go. I went to a 2-day workshop, so if you have 4 hours, you learn some stuff. But it's just to bring awareness, and maybe we can bring a different audience than came to the Conservation Commission one. I would really like to get into the world of realtors and contractors, whose first instinct is to just replace those. There are other solutions. So that's the HDC part, and we're struggling with that one would have to have a monetary match. But it's just something for you folks to consider plugging if we get it.
Okay. Any other business?
I don't think so.
Is everybody still comfortable meeting this time of the day?
I like it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nice.
Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be December 15th.
I will say after that, I may be tied up on Tuesdays at that time, depending on how the house moves. I really don't know. It's a real struggle between in-person and virtual. But I think committee meetings are going to be virtual, and that's when I have my committee meetings, is all day Tuesdays. But we do get a lunch break, so I will push for having it at 12:30.
Shall we plan on meeting on the 15th?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Well, let's go ahead.
All right. If there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Well,
Bill?
aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
Maura?
Aye.
John?
I
Pam?
Aye.